In the late 1970s, motorcycle cops roared onto television screens with CHiPs, an action-packed crime drama following the exploits of two young officers in the California Highway Patrol. Now over 45 years since it first debuted, join us as we take a trip back to the sun-drenched freeways of Southern Cal to find out where the show's stars are today. Larry Wilcox as Officer Jon Baker. Playing level-headed Officer Jon Baker, Larry Wilcox provided a grounded counterpoint to Erik Estrada's reckless antics. His character joined CHP after a stint as an amateur motorcycle racer, which producers hoped would translate into exciting stunt work. The casting of Wilcox proved to be serendipitous. He was an experienced motorcycle in real life, having raced since his college years. Born in San Diego in 1947, Wilcox pursued acting early on. In the 60s, he landed a prominent role as one of the Cartwright sons on the classic Western series Bonanza. Prior to being cast on CHiPs, he also had a recurring part on the family show Lassie. Though Wilcox left CHiPs in 1982 to form his own production company, he remained proud of his time on the show. He remarked in a subsequent interview that CHiPs was a lot of fun, noting that while the show had no Emmy-worthy moments, it was still entertaining. Since then, the 76-year-old actor has led a quiet family life. He lives in California with his wife of over 30 years, Olympic track star Marlene Stewart Wilcox, and their two children. On the career front, Wilcox has continued working in entertainment, lending his talents to projects like the sci-fi series Babylon 5 in the 90s. Erik Estrada as Officer Francis Poncherello. Erik Estrada's portrayal of wild and reckless rookie cop Francis Poncherello catapulted him to fame. With his trademark frizzy hair, irreverent attitude, and tendency to charm every lady in sight, Ponch became one of the most iconic characters from the 70s. Born in New York City in 1949, Estrada landed early roles in police dramas like Hawaii Five-0 and The New Centurions. But it was playing Ponch that made him a bona fide star. His character was so popular, Estrada even recorded several albums in character, including the 1977 track Ponch, Can You Sing? He was featured prominently on CHiPs posters and lunchboxes, becoming one of the biggest teen idols of his era. Like his on-screen partner Wilcox, Estrada was an experienced motorcyclist before being cast. Still, the role wasn't without hazards. In 1979, he fractured several ribs and broke both wrists after being thrown from his bike during a daredevil stunt scene. After leaving CHiPs in 1981 following a highly publicized salary dispute, Estrada went on to star in numerous Spanish-language telenovelas and direct-to-video action movies. He even served as a reserve officer for the Muncie Police Department in Indiana from 2016 to 2020. Now 74, he continues acting in occasional roles. Robert Pine as Sergeant Joseph Getraer. As their gruff but caring mentor, Sergeant Joseph Getraer, Robert Pine provided the perfect father figure to keep his unruly officers in line. Pine was the most experienced cast member when CHiPs began, having racked up credits on classic shows like Star Trek, Gunsmoke, and Magnum Force. But it was his 6 seasons barking orders as Sergeant Getraer that truly endeared him to audiences. In an interview, he mentioned he received more reactions for that character than any other role he had played, and said the character would always be his favorite. Born in 1941 in New York, Pine entered acting after serving in the military. In addition to CHiPs, memorable roles include playing Jim Rockford's father on The Rockford Files. Recently, the 81-year-old actor has enjoyed recurring parts on NCIS and Parks and Recreation. Pine has the distinction of acting alongside his famous son, Chris Pine, in the 2010 indie film Small Town Saturday Night. Brodie Greer as Officer Baricza. One of the show's most prominent supporting cast members was Officer Baricza, affectionately known as Bear. Warmly portrayed by actor Brodie Greer, Baricza appeared in over 100 episodes during CHiPs' initial 1977-83 run. The character of Bear was introduced in the first episode as a naive rookie paired with Ponch and Jon for training. Despite some early bumbling, he soon evolved into a trusted member of the motor team. Bear was good-natured and loved by his fellow officers, often serving as a comic foil, but he could also hold his own on dangerous calls. Greer's expressive acting brought heart to the role. Though CHiPs marked the peak of his career, he gave memorable life to Bear. The 73-year-old Greer seems to have left Hollywood behind, but in his memorable performance as Bear, he made audiences laugh and care every week. Paul Linke as comedic officer Arthur Grossman. Providing comic relief was Officer Arthur Grossman, portrayed by Paul Linke from seasons 2 through 5. Grossman was an eccentric, hypochondriac cop whose hobbies included gambling, writing poetry, and taking odd jobs like a repo man. Linke's wry, deadpan delivery made Grossman an endearing character. Though sometimes a liability on the job, his quirky perspective and dry one-liners lightened tense situations. Underneath Grossman's goofy exterior, Linke also hinted at his loneliness. In the late 80s, Linke turned his talent for wry humor to one-man shows based on his life, including the critically praised Time Flies When You're Alive, dealing with the tragic loss of his first wife. Though Grossman was a small role, Linke brought him to life. Randi Oakes as Officer Bonnie Clark. For 3 seasons, Randi Oakes played tough-talking Officer Bonnie Clark, introduced in 1979 as Ponch's new partner. Though one of the few women on the force, Clark could handle herself in any situation. Former beauty queen Oakes perfectly balanced Clark's tomboy grit, feminine charm, and vulnerable side. While just one of the ensemble, her presence added new dynamics to the show. Off-screen, Oakes generated headlines in 1981 by marrying Gregory Harrison of Trapper John M.D. fame. Retiring from acting in 1985, she has since lived a quiet life with Harrison in Oregon. But for fans, Oakes as feisty Officer Clark holds a special place among the memorable characters. Michael Dorn as Officer Jebediah Turner. Prior to his fame as the Klingon Worf on Star Trek, a young Michael Dorn played Officer Jebediah Turner on CHiPs. It was one of his first major acting roles. Though initially a background character, Dorn's Turner was eventually given more focus in roughly a dozen episodes. He portrayed Turner as a tough, no-nonsense patrolman, hints of the gruff warrior Worf to come. Despite limited screen time, the character allowed Dorn to showcase his talents. Having recently reprised his iconic Star Trek role, the 70-year-old actor has come full circle in his career. But for Dorn, CHiPs provided that important first chance to make his mark. The show gave him a springboard that, through talent and determination, launched him to sci-fi stardom. Now it's time to hear from you. Who was your favorite character from CHiPs? Let us know in the comment section below.